But before we get to any of that, we are going to talk about obese children stuffing their faces with junk food and the like. So bad is this problem that the NHS is setting up thousands of kids are going to be given diet coaches. These kids to sort out their nutrition, to try and make them less overweight, less fat, to be honest with you. Let's call it what it is. All these nice words: obese, overweight, fat. They are. That's what they are. But should a 2-year-old be given a diet coach? And where are their parents in all of this? Let's talk to the head of Young Voices UK, Jason Reed. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to denigrate the importance of the issue of child obesity. It's something that we should sort out. But how do these kids get obese in the first place? And for God's sake, how does a 2-year-old get dangerously overweight? If you've got a 2-year-old dangerously overweight, I would suggest you shouldn't necessarily be giving that 2-year-old a diet coach. You should be talking extremely seriously to his or her parents.
Yeah, this is the government is making this out to be a much bigger issue than it actually is, because that's obviously an extreme case. The statistics that this policy are based on, they're claiming that 1 in 7 children are obese by the time they start reception. So that's 4-year-old children. Supposedly 15% of them are obese. I'm very skeptical about that. Where are all these fat 4-year-olds? And the reason why there's such huge numbers is because of the way that the government measures childhood obesity. For some reason, they refuse to use the clinical definition of obesity, which is when you hit the 98th percentile for body mass index. They use the 95th percentile instead. And so according to IEA research, that means that according to the government, children between the ages of 13 and 15, a quarter are obese, but when they hit the age of 16, it drops to 15% because now they're adults and you measure it differently. It's perfectly clear that children are not losing a load of weight between the age of 15 and 16. It's just that we're measuring it wrong. And so that's why you have then these ludicrous policies like this that's been branded in the newspapers, Fat Camp UK, where the government are going to be spending £6 million, so that's £6,000 for every child, in order to, quote, pinpoint the cause of obesity. Well, I can save the NHS a lot of money. You don't need to spend £6 million to pinpoint the cause of obesity. It's pretty obvious, isn't it?
Yes, well, A, it's what they're eating, and B, it's what their parents are giving them to eat or allowing them to eat. So that's the word that doesn't seem to feature much in these stories about the fat camps. 1,000 kids a year will be referred to these clinics based on the contention that more than 2.5 million children in England are too fat. And 1 in 5 are obese by the time they leave primary school. As I say, where are the parents in this? Is there any scheme to talk to parents to teach them how to feed their kids more sensibly?
Exactly right. It's completely putting all the resources in the wrong place. They're going to hire all these experts, all these dietitians and pediatricians to try and work with the children, implying that they have some profound issue other than just poor dietary choices, which is very easy to fix with some responsible parenting. And as I say, the root of this is just that we are looking at the issue of obesity completely wrong. There was a quite harrowing story in the Sun yesterday about a mum of 2 who was told by her local NHS foundation, a local children's hospital, that her 5-year-old daughter was too fat and needed to lose weight. Now, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for people to be fat, but this child is not fat. There are photos in the Sun that you can see. This child isn't fat. And there are countless cases like this where Jobsworths who work as health officials are taking it upon themselves to tell children, and in some cases to tell parents, your child has a health problem, when that really isn't the case. And that means that the children who really do have health problems don't get the resources that they need. And it means that meanwhile, the rest of us have to live through this nanny state nonsense where we're then told you're all eating too much sugar and we need to restrict junk food advertising because we're all addicted to burgers and this kind of nonsense.
Yeah, these poor kids, they're going to get their fat camp supervisors, their diet coaches throughout their school years. And then when they leave school, Boris will get hold of them with more of his nanny state things about you can't eat that and there's sugar signs on that and we're going to tax salt. And it's none of, I mean, I'm not against being careful about what kids eat. They need supervision. One would have hoped from their parents. But I am against governments trying to tell me or any other adult what to eat. It's none of their business. But it occurs to me, Jason, that one of the problems with kids is they're just not getting enough exercise. I mean, admittedly, when I was a child, it was quite a long time ago. But by and large, every kid in my day, every kid was like, beanpole thin, stick thin, because we spent all our time running around. We ran around all the time. We were always outside playing. Now, I know that maybe the streets aren't as safe as they used to be, but my point is, kids don't get enough exercise these days. They spend all their time looking at their computer screens.
You're absolutely right that children used to be thinner than they are, and that's another part of the problem with measuring childhood obesity. If for some reason the government insists on using data from 1990, we can't use more recent data than that. But part of the justification for this Fat Camp UK for fat British children is that childhood obesity has gone up during lockdown since COVID has been here, in which case, as you say, the solution then is more exercise. The solution is not hiring a load of overpaid health officials and experts to try and pinpoint the cause of obesity. The solution is buy them a bike, give them a football.
Absolutely. And it's one more scourge caused by lockdowns. I mean, they're blaming terrorism, the increase in terrorism, on lockdowns because many young men with not much else to do spent many months looking at their laptops and being radicalized. Now they're blaming child obesity. They're blaming drinking. A lot of people are drinking too much because of the lockdowns. Domestic abuse has soared because of the lockdowns. Suicides have soared because of the lockdowns. It does all add up to a kind of picture where maybe no matter what the circumstances are, this government should think twice before they impose any more lockdowns on us. Wouldn't you agree?
I would, but it seems that Boris wouldn't, with his still refusing to rule out another Christmas lockdown, because people in government and people in public health agencies, they've loved the precedents that have been broken by the pandemic. They've loved being able to roll back our freedoms at will, and they can't seem to give up that power. And so even as we are nearing the end of the COVID pandemic, we're seeing, I think, that them trying to transition those powers into other areas, such as obesity and public health more broadly, and trying to use the precedents that have been set to take more and more control of our lives, to say, no, we've decided that your choices are unhealthy, and we're going to do something about that by making your life more expensive and imposing more restrictions on your everyday choices. And this story about fat camps is just the latest iteration of that. It's just the latest iteration of shaming people for their choices.
Agreed. And when you say we're nearing the end of the COVID pandemic, could you let the government know, do you think, Jason? Because they don't seem to be with the programme. Good to talk to you, as always. Head of Young Voices UK, Jason.